All right, let's jump right in. If you're a parent, a teacher, or even a student who's part of an individualized education program, an IEP, there are two words you have got to know inside and out. They sound kind of similar, but trust me, their impact on a student's education could not be more different. We're talking about accommodations and modifications.
And honestly, this is it. This is the whole ball game right here. This single idea is the key that unlocks everything we're about to talk about. Accommodations are about the how. Modifications are about the what. Got it? Let's keep that in our back pocket as we go.
So let's break that down even more. On the how side, accommodations are all about giving a student access. Think of it like leveling the playing field so they have a fair shot at the same goal as everyone else. But on the what side, modifications actually alter the goal. They're not just leveling the playing field, they are changing the entire game.
Okay, so now that we have that core idea, how versus what, let's really unpack these terms with some clear definitions and real-world examples. This is where it all starts to click. First up, accommodations. The really crucial thing to get here is that an accommodation is just a tool. It's a strategy that helps a student get around a barrier, but, and this is so important, it does not lower the academic standard one bit. The learning goal stays exactly the same as it is for every other kid in the class.
And here's some perfect examples. Giving a student extended time on a test or an audio version of a book doesn't make the questions any easier, right? Of course not. It just gives them a different way to access the material and show you what they know. The actual content, the stuff they're learning, hasn't changed at all.
Okay, now let's flip the coin and talk about modifications. A modification is way more fundamental. It actually changes the instructional level, the content, or the criteria for success. This is a much, much bigger deal. And you can see it in these examples. When you shorten an assignment and take out key learning standards, or you give a student a simplified reading passage, well, you're no longer holding them to the same grade level expectation. The what they are learning has been fundamentally changed. So we've got the definitions, but why do we care so much? Why is this so critical? Well, because choosing between an accommodation and a modification, that's not just some small detail in a meeting. It has massive, long-term consequences for a student's entire future.
I mean, especially when you get to high school, this choice affects pretty much everything. We're talking about the type of diploma a student can earn, how colleges are going to read their transcript, and whether they're even eligible to apply to certain schools. The stakes are just incredibly high.
This brings us to a moment of, let's call it radical clarity. If you are a parent sitting in an IEP meeting, there is one question, one single question you have to ask to cut through all the jargon and really understand what path your child is on. That's it. It's that simple. Just asking, hey, are we talking about accommodations here, or are we talking about modifications? It forces the entire team to get on the same page. The answer to that one question tells you everything about the direction you're headed and the long-term impact of the choices being made.
So let's make this super concrete with a real-world example. In California, this whole distinction is a huge deal when it comes to the big statewide tests, the CASPP. The state has very, very clear rules about this stuff.
See, the state has this tiered system. There are universal tools that literally any student can use. Then you've got designated supports for students with specific needs. And then, at that top tier, you have accommodations, which are only for students with a formal IEP or a 504 plan.
And here it is, the golden rule that everybody needs to tattoo on their brain. An accommodation can't just show up out of nowhere on test day. For a student to use something like text-to-speech on a state test, they have to be using that same tool regularly in the classroom. It's got to be a normal part of their day-to-day learning.
All right, let's shift gears a little. We've talked about the policies and the rules. Now let's talk about the people at the heart of all this, the parent, the teacher, and of course, the student. Each one has a totally unique and vital role to play.
So let's start with the parents. Their perspective is just so foundational. It's absolutely essential for parents to see these accommodations for what they are. They're empowering tools, not crutches that are going to create dependence. That mindset changes the entire conversation.
So as a parent, these are the questions you should be asking all the time. Look at that accommodation and ask, is this thing really removing a barrier for my kid? Are they actually using it? And this is the big one, is it making them more independent? The goal is always, always empowerment.
Okay, next up, the teacher. For them, the message is simple and it is non-negotiable. An accommodation isn't some favor they can decide to do if they have time. Nope, it is a legal obligation. It's a core part of their job to make that IEP a reality in their classroom every single day.
And let's be crystal clear about this. Implementing what's in that IEP is not optional. It is a legal requirement. It's not a favor. It has to be done. It has to be done consistently, and it has to be woven right into the fabric of how they teach.
And that brings us, finally, to the most important person in this entire equation, the student. Their journey is all about moving from being someone who just passively gets help to someone who actively owns their own learning.
And this leads us to our last and maybe our most important section. How do we actually help a student build the skills they need to advocate for themselves? Because that is the ultimate goal, right? That's the path to real independence.
I love this timeline because it shows you exactly how this is supposed to work. It's this idea of a gradual release of responsibility. See, in elementary school, the adults are totally in the driver's seat. Middle school, that's the bridge where kids start practicing. But by high school, the goal is for the student to take the lead, to be the one emailing their teachers and explaining what they need.
And this, right here, is the profound idea that should be guiding every single decision we make. The whole point of special education, of an IEP, of all these supports, it's not to create permanent dependence. The goal is to build increasing independence.
Because at the end of the day, that's what real success looks like. It isn't just about a diploma. The true victory is a young adult who understands how they learn and can walk into a college class or a new job and say, with confidence, this is what I need to succeed. Now that is the power of a well-crafted IEP.